Hello, today's lesson is a review of what we've already done. We're going to be finding the part, the total, and the percent. And this is a guided note so we can go through the process. In the past, we've been told we're finding the part or finding the total or finding the percent. In this lesson, we have to decide on our own based on the word problem. So it says, read each word problem, decide what information is given and what information you need to find. Then use the equation, and it should say this equation, part equals percent rate times total, when we use P equals RT, and substitute numbers for the correct variable. Don't forget to convert a given percent to a decimal or a decimal answer to a percent if asked to find what percent. So let's read through the problem. George read 72% of the book. If he read 270 pages, how many pages are in the book? So I prefer, this is just my personal preference, I immediately when I see that know that we're talking about the rate because the R in our formula, part equals percent rate times total is the percentage. It goes on to say if he read 270 pages, how many pages are in the book? Well, for two reasons I think this is the part. It said that he read part of the book, not 100%, 72% of the book, and then it goes on to tell us how many pages that is. So this is the part, and then it also asks how many pages are in the book, so it's asking us the total. So I'm confident now that I have the pieces and the variables labeled in the right way. So we're going to start with our part equals rate times total. We do know the part in this one, so we're going to write down 270. That's the part of the book that he read. He read 72% of the total, and the total is what we don't know. So before we can continue, we must convert this to a decimal. So 270 equals 0.72. You're to divide by 100, or once again, if you want the shortcut, you can just scoop it back 2 places to the left. And that is going to multiply times the total. Well, we want to know what the total is, and we have enough information now that we can use to solve this. We're going to use an inverse operation. We see this is side by side. So we're going to do the opposite of multiplying, since that's what we see. We're going to divide by 0.72 on both sides. So would you please pause, use your calculator, and find out what that is? And it turns out that 375 equals T. So now we want to know what we answered. It says how many pages are in a book. There are 375 pages in the book. So now let's continue. Let's go on to letter B. Again, we don't know if we're going to be asked to find the part, the percentage rate, or the total. So let's read through. Gina checked 20 markers and 7 of them were working. So that should be a little comma there. What percent of her markers are not working? So let's highlight our information. She checked 20 markers, 7 of them were working, and then what percent were not working? So we want to be super careful with this. 7 were working. So this is kind of a little bit of a tricky problem. We're going to start with our part equals rate times total. And initially, it looked like this was the part because 7 out of 20 were working. But they said specifically what were not working. So if she checked 20 markers and 7 of them were working, that means 13 were not working. And that's what we want. So the part that was not working were 13. They specifically said what percent, so we don't know the rate, and they did give us the total number of markers. So we don't necessarily want to see our variable before our number. So I'm just going to rewrite this and I'm going to move the number in front of the variable. That's the way we're used to seeing it in math. That's the way we prefer to see the number before the variable. So we do not have to scoop any decimals or divide by 100 because we don't have a percent right now. So we are to our solving stage. We are going to divide both sides by 20. So pause and take 13 divided by 20. And that answer is 0.65. Now, hopefully that makes sense because I'm taking a smaller number divided by a bigger number, so I'm not going to get a whole number. And that's the R, or the rate. But it's not quite a percentage rate, so we're going to make this decimal, the rate, into a percent by multiplying it by 100, or if you don't have a calculator readily available, you're going to take the decimal and scoop it 2 places forward, and so the answer is 65%. And we have to attach the percent sign. Let's find out what we answered. What percent, 60% of her markers were not working. So 65% of her markers were not working. And I want you to underline not, because they gave us how many were working, but they asked the question in reverse. So we had to be very good, diligent readers. Now let's go on to the last problem. Let's read through it. The fish tank has 80 fish in it. 75 of the fish are guppies. How many guppies are in the tank? So let's start by highlighting. I see the fish tank has 80 fish in it. That certainly sounds like a total to me. So I think we have the total here. Now as I continue, I can see I have the percentage rate. So we're going to mark percentage rate. And it says that 75% of them are guppies. So part of them are guppies. And the question is, how many guppies are in the tank? So we're trying to find out the part. So we're going to start with P equals rate times total. We don't know the part that are guppies. We do know the percentage rate, and we do know the total, which is 80. So now we have to go in reverse of the problem before. We want to change 75 to a decimal. So this time we divide by 100. Going to a percent, we multiply. Going from a percent, we divide. Or the shortcut way would be to take the percent sign off and scoop the decimal back 2 places. So we now have part equals 0.75 and then times 80. Since these two numbers are on the same side together, there's no reason to use our solving steps. We're going to multiply 0 and 75/100ths times 80. So please pause and do that in your calculator. And the answer is 60. So let's pause and make sure that makes sense. If there were if there were 80 fish in the tank and part of them were guppies, well, 60 is part of 80. So that does make sense. And our question we just answered, there are 60 guppies in the tank. So now I'd like you to go back to your packet, and I want you to find the page that matches finding the part, total, and percent, and practice those 6 practice problems on your own. The key will be attached in the lesson, but remember, please show all the steps. Thank you so much. Take care.